among the silent hills of Ireland, where mist crawls over the grass and the wind speaks in the tongue of forgotten gods. They say something still breathes beneath the earth, beings who were once divine. They are called the Aos Sí, and on Samhain night, their doors open once more. In the depths of ancient Irish folklore, where green hills stand like silent sentinels and the northern winds whisper tales of old, there dwell beings known as the Aos Sí, the fair folk, or the exiled Celtic deities descended from the Tuatha De Danann, the tribe of the Irish gods. These entities were neither wholly fey nor angelic, but weakened echoes of the old gods who, after their defeat in mythic wars, were banished to the underworld and took residence within the Sidhe, the fairy mounds, sacred Celtic hills that serve as gateways to the other world. The Aos Sí were beautiful and powerful, with hair that shimmered like gold or silver, eyes whose colors shifted with the seasons, and garments woven from invisible silk that sliced through the wind. They were immortal, yet not without vulnerability. They required appeasement, offerings of food or gifts, to prevent their wrath and to keep them from meddling in the human world. During the festival of Samhain, the Celtic celebration marking the end of harvest and the beginning of the dark winter, when the veil between worlds grows thin, their presence became most prominent. On this night, the doors of their mounds would open, and the Aos Sí would emerge to wander among the living, bestowing blessings or punishment. In one of the remote villages of Ireland, near an ancient hill called Sidhe an Firmoir, the Hill of the Great Man, a legendary mound rooted in Irish folklore, there lived an old farmer named Finan, a common Celtic name meaning little fair one. Finan was a simple man, with rough hands hardened by years of labor in the fields, and a white beard that gleamed like winter snow. Since childhood, he had heard the stories told by the druids, the Celtic priests and keepers of mystical knowledge, that on the night of Samhain, the Aos Sí would emerge from their mounds. They warned that if one failed to leave offerings of food and drink, milk, bread and fruit on the windowsill, the Aos Sí might steal your livestock, take your children, or even erase your name from people's memories, leaving you forgotten forever. But Finan, who had lost his wife and child long ago during a harsh winter, no longer believed such tales. To him, the Aos Sí were nothing more than old stories, and Samhain was a time for gathering and celebration with neighbors, not a night to fear invisible beings. The night of Samhain had arrived. The full moon gleamed in the sky like a silver eye, and the cold wind carried yellow leaves through the air like wandering spirits. The villagers gathered around great bonfires, sacred fires meant to ward off spirits and appease. The Aos Sí, chanting rhythmic hymns and wearing animal hides to disguise themselves as part of the wild world. The air was thick with the scent of burning oak and incense, herbal smoke from plants like mistletoe, the sacred Celtic herb. But Finan stayed in his small cottage and left no food on the windowsill. He muttered to himself, "If the Aos Sí are real, why haven't I seen them all these years?" Then, by the dim light of a single candle, he drifted off to sleep. At midnight, when the veil between worlds was at its thinnest, a sound like distant bells began to echo through the air. The song of the Slua Sea, the fairy host, a gathering of the Aos Sí flying on the wind. Finan awoke with a start, feeling the air grow heavy around him. Suddenly, the door of his cottage swung open without a touch, and a tall shadow entered, a beautiful woman of the Aos Sí, with golden hair that shimmered like flames, green eyes like the forest, and a gown woven from leaves and wind itself. She was not a Beansea, a banshee, the fairy woman who foretells death, but one of the old gods. Perhaps of the Tuatha De Danann, now dwelling within the hills. Her voice was melodic yet cold as she spoke. "Finan, you have forgotten us. You have offered no gift, and now you must pay." Finan was afraid, but he tried to be brave. "You're just a legend," he said. The woman laughed, a sound like the wind whispering through the trees. She explained that the Aos Sí were still alive. They were the souls of the dead, or pagan gods from before Christianity, hidden within the hills. On the night of Samhain, they emerged to maintain the balance of the world. If they were pleased, they would bless the living, good harvests, mild winters, but if not, they would punish, stealing cattle, taking children away to live in the other world, or even erasing someone's name from memory, as if they had never existed. The woman extended her hand toward Finan and said, "I will take your name, unless you offer a gift now." Realizing the truth, Finan hurried to bring his last milk and a loaf of fresh bread, placing them on the floor before her. The woman smiled and accepted the offering. "Remember," she said, "we are still alive, and Samhain is our time." Then she faded away like mist, and the wind grew still. The next morning, Finan saw that his farm was more fruitful than ever. But from that night on, he left offerings every Samhain and told the story to others. The secret of the Aos Sí was this: they were neither dead nor forgotten, but lived like eternal shadows within the deep, green ancient hills of Ireland, where their faint music sometimes drifted from cracks in the stones, and mysterious blue lights shimmered on misty nights. On the night of Samhain, when the thin boundaries between worlds fade like a torn veil, the Aos Sí emerged with light, invisible steps carrying the wind with them, reminding the living that the old world, filled with magic, gods, and the eternal cycles of nature, is still alive and vibrant, not only in legend, but in the roots of the earth itself. In modern folklore, they often appear as fairies, small, mischievous spirits, or as banshees, the weeping women of the other world who foretell death with mournful cries. There are tales of villagers who, on stormy nights, hear their laments carried through the trees like the voice of the wind. Some still believe that in the remote villages of Ireland, in the mountains of Connemara, or around the sacred hills of Tara, their presence can still be heard. Distant bells, soft whispers, gentle warnings to honor the old ways and respect the past, lest their anger awaken and the balance of nature be disturbed. Until the end of his days, Finan never forgot that the Aos Sí still lived. Every year, even in his old age, he placed fresh milk and warm bread on his windowsill, telling his grandchildren the story of the night he met them. For him, Samhain was not merely a festival, but a living bridge between a mysterious past and the modern present, where the old and new worlds meet and become one. They say that on Samhain night, if you stand in silence beside the ancient mounds, you can still hear the Aos Sí whispering, calling the names of those who showed no respect. If you dare to listen, like, comment, and subscribe, because when the next wind blows, they might whisper your name.